archaeological piece that we found as well, dating back to 700 BC. But we said that Sennacherib failed in taking Jerusalem, but there was one greater king who succeeded in doing just that. So if you'll follow me just right to the next glass display case, we'll find out who that was. You can gather around. You're going to be looking in here. And just make sure there's a walkway that people can get through. All right. So Israel was saved, if you could say, from Sennacherib's invasion with the Assyrian armies. But from Israel's point of view, they tell us that the next 100 years they were unfaithful to their God. They began worshiping idols and other gods, and therefore they lost their privilege of representing who God was to the other nations. So they have prophecies that say that their nation would be taken into captivity. Well, 100 years later, from Assyria, we have Nebuchadnezzar, who is building up this new up-and-coming nation called Babylon, with its capital as the city of Babylon. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was a great king. And just like any great king, he was concerned with two major things. The first one, conquest. The second one, building projects. If you look at these three terracotta cylinders right down here, you have all of them, Nebuchadnezzar sharing these amazing building projects that he's doing all over his empire. Because not only did he want the greatest empire in the entire world, but he wanted the most glorious, the richest empire in the entire world. So he was building temples and fabulous buildings. If you look at this picture behind me, you can see a picture of the Ishtar Gate, which was basically blue, sparkling, dazzling tiles that would greet any visitor into the city of Babylon to tell them that they were entering the richest city on the face of the planet. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was so proud of himself for his accomplishments. He was able to take Israel, and he was able to neutralize Egypt and build a world empire. He was so proud of himself that he wanted everyone to know. So for that reason, he stamped his name on the bricks they would use to build these famous buildings. So if you look right here, you see a brick with Nebuchadnezzar's name stamped right on it. This guy wanted to be great. Well, one morning, Nebuchadnezzar wakes up, and he knows he's had a dream, but he can't remember what it was. Has that ever happened to you? Yes. But since he's an ancient king, he has a little bit more force than we do. And so he calls together his magicians and enchanters, and he says, I had a dream last night. I think it's important. I can't remember what it was. I need you to tell me what it was and what it means. Well, the astrologers and magicians and enchanters go, Nebuchadnezzar, you are crazy. Let's make sure people can get by back here. Yes. Nebuchadnezzar, you are crazy. Nobody can know what somebody else dreamt, right? That's impossible. So King Nebuchadnezzar says, all right, well, then I'm going to have all of you executed. You're all done for. Well, they start scrambling. They're worried. They're trying to find a way to save their lives. They can't find one. Well, finally, a guy named Daniel pops into the scene. Now, Daniel was in exile from this nation of Israel. He'd been taken as a slave. We saw in the last reliefs that was common procedure. Take slaves and use them in your own empire, either for workforce or if they are skilled, then use them in skilled positions. Well, Daniel was a skilled administrator. And so they were using Daniel in administrative positions in the empire. Well, Daniel comes onto the scene and he says, Nebuchadnezzar, I can't interpret your dream, but the God that I serve can. And so Nebuchadnezzar says, all right, let's hear it. And Daniel says, this is what you dreamed. Can you see this? You saw a great image with its head of pure gold. And Nebuchadnezzar said, yes, that's what I dreamed. That's exactly what I dreamed. And he said, the chest and arms were of silver. The thighs were of bronze. The legs were of iron. And the feet were of iron mixed with clay. And Nebuchadnezzar said, that's exactly what I dreamt. And Daniel said, this is what it means. He said, my God has shown you the future of what will pass on this earth. He said, Nebuchadnezzar, you are that head of gold in all your splendor in this magnificent empire of Babylon, which is probably, arguably, the richest empire this earth has ever seen. He said, you are that head of gold. But just even though you want your kingdom to last forever, it will not last forever. It will be taken by another kingdom, inferior to yours in riches. And later on it mentions how that kingdom would be Persia. And then later on it mentions how Persia would be taken over by Greece. And then how Greece would be taken over by Rome. And then how Rome, there would not be one world empire again, but just divided nations. So this is in 600 BC, a prophecy that Daniel, that from a dream Nebuchadnezzar has had, that would tell the future. Now why are we looking at this? Because it's a helpful way. I want you to be able to understand the sweep of history, okay? So that any artifact you see in this museum, you can piece it together on where it comes from. So let's practice, all right? These are the major world empires that we're going to see down the line from the past 2,500 years, okay? So repeat after me. Babylon.
Babylon.
Persia.
Persia.
Greece.
Greece.
Rome.
Rome.
Divided nations.
Divided nations.
All right, should we do that one more time, or you got it?
Got it.
All right, we'll quiz at the next thing. So we know that Nebuchadnezzar's empire, or it said that Nebuchadnezzar's empire would not last forever. And history tells us that that's exactly what happens. But let's go find out who did it and how they did it right around the corner.